Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to the Beyond Bitcoin Show. Today is January the 19th, 2019. Got to get used to that new year. Strong hand, unconfiscatable. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Personal responsibility is a new counterculture. That's going to be important for today. Deferral of gratification, conviction. Everything I talk about is linked to below. Follow me on Twitter at TechBalt, TechBalt. Trezors, t-shirts below, affiliate codes. Support the show if you want to. So let's talk about Sam Vaknin. I linked to Sam Vaknin below. I learned about him on the Sandman channel, and he's an interesting guy. He talks about a narcissism as the modern religion, where all members consider themselves gods. It's an interesting concept. I'm going to talk about him on tomorrow's show too, because he has a Bitcoin video that is not exactly correct, but you can learn some stuff from it. He's a smart guy. He actually has the narcissistic, or he had the narcissistic personality disorder, pathological narcissism. So yeah, we do live in a world today where a lot of people are worshiping themselves, and they get a high from posting information about themselves on Facebook pictures, and if people upvote them, that makes them feel just even better about themselves and love themselves even more, think they're gods even more. And if you go against them, then you're a horrible person. If you don't like me, then you're horrible. You're against, and so yeah, he has it's some interesting videos there. I linked to that video again. It's called Distributed, he said, Narcissism, the New Faith, Part 1, Distributed God and Human Sacrifice. Yeah, it indeed. Narcissism is it's a destructive faith, and it's a sickness too. So yeah, we're just dust people. we're not, we're not gods. It's unbelievable, the attention that people want. I think people are lacking something. They're definitely lacking meaning in life. So yeah, man, take care of yourself and everything, but the narcissism, just admiring yourself constantly. All right, so Sam Vaknin. Sam Vaknin, also, he's Jewish, actually. He was an Israeli at one point. He has a lot of articles out there, and I linked to one, a dialogue about anti-Semitism. It's not that great, but it's got some interesting stuff in there. I mean, he's not obviously he's not religious at all, but he does admit that he's Jewish still, so that's interesting. But he doesn't live in Israel anymore. He was arrested for some financial crime at one point, and we'll talk about that tomorrow on the my regular One Bitcoin show. Remember, I do a show here every single day. On Saturdays, it's the Beyond Bitcoin show, where we don't really talk about Bitcoin, but every other day of the week, it's all about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And of course, Friday's show was the This Week in Bitcoin show. Check that out below at disruptmeister.com or techbalt.com, techbalt.com. Jeet was on, Gabriel was on, Farzan from South Africa, and Gabriel from Venezuela. We had some technical difficulties. We'll have him back on very soon to talk about the very serious situation in Venezuela, politically, what's going down there. And, if you've got Bitcoin, you're in good shape, but things could get really messy. So I also linked to a site. What is this site called? Whatever. It's a no emotion, pure cold fact chart site about economics. If you are interested in the economics of the United States, like labor force participation, it's just the pure charts, no emotion. Check it out if you need statistics. It's pretty interesting. Let's move on to health. I know a lot of you like to pop pills and you like to pop candy every day. I like to pop this stuff. I pop it, and I eat this stuff like it's Cheetos or something. This is garlic. This is garlic. I just pop them in my mouth, and sometimes they can burn a lot. Again, it's during my one big meal a day. I only eat once a day, And, I'll put some, maybe I'll be eating a chicken and I'll throw this in there too. So it doesn't directly hit your taste buds, but you get used to it eventually. It doesn't burn that bad. And again, with the garlic, you're like, why is stuff growing out of it? Well, that means that's the kind of garlic you want. You don't want the kind of garlic that's been irradiated, that's from China, that's dead. It's good when it's alive like that and growing. So there's a health tip of the day. It keeps you nice and alive inside. You can look up garlic, Google garlic, and look up some health benefits of garlic. I'm a guy who just pops it like candy, baby. Okay. Popping pills? No, I'm popping garlic. Pound that like button, people. Okay. Onions also. Yeah, I love onions. Love these things. Yeah. But again, I don't eat it straight up raw. I usually, I'll eat a chicken, or I love to put with my avocados. I cut this up and I scoop up the avocado with the garlic. Oh, it's good. I do that with apples too, but I don't have that many. Oh, here we got apple here too. I don't eat that many apples. Maybe I used to eat an apple once a day, but now I just make sure I have it. I used to have at least one apple a day. Now I have at least one fruit a day. I'm on a streak. Like, seriously, I had like 10 years straight of eating an apple every single day, I think. It's my grandmother kind of got me in the habit, but she'd always give me apples. She's still around. Oh, we'll be talking about grandma in a second. Don't worry. We got a story about her coming up. Okay, but no, I'm not recommending apples or no, it's good to have fruit every day. But again, I am recommending garlic and onions and avocados. But apples are good, better than candy. Whew. I mean, yeah, this is nature's candy. This is when I have my dessert. This is my dessert: an apple or a banana or an orange or a few of them. I love fruit. Okay, but if some people have bad reactions to fruit, get yourself healthy first. Well, get yourself healthy. One way is just not eating candy, having fruit instead. But okay, now I'm rambling on about health. No need to do that. So again, I'm in Israel. I've been here for a month now in Tel Aviv. And so I am only reading about the government shutdown in the United States here and there. But it seems like people aren't freaking out too much about it because, again, you don't need all those government workers. Has the country fallen apart? No, it hasn't. So who cares about the government shutdown? And I think a lot of people are seeing that. Well, a lot of 20%ers are seeing that at least. And I think that's a good sign. It's progress. If you used to think, the government shutdown so bad, and now you're seeing like, well, wait a sec, what is this all about? It's not making that much of a difference that the government shut down. Yeah, society is progressing. At least 20%ers that are waking up to that. We don't need that big of a government in the United States. They can get real jobs. They can actually be productive. Some of those people. They'll get paid. Don't worry. I wish they didn't get paid, but they're going to get paid. But it's not obviously having no effect on my life whatsoever. But I am commenting on it because I'm not, again, on the channels that I watch, fewer and fewer people are mentioning it, but a few people still mention it, so I thought I would bring it up. And I actually wrote that topic at the beginning of the week. So throughout the week, I just write down ideas that I'm going to do on the Saturday show. That's how I do the show. And then I review it before the show, see if I remember everything that I cared about, and go from there. And that's what you're watching right now, just me ad-libbing on these topics that I have written down. So here's a video. Oh, yeah, Ben Shapiro's show on last Sunday. Heather McDonald was on. And she was an interesting lady. But something she said, talking about how, and I've mentioned this many times, how being a victim is just so cool in society. That's mainstream society. Being personal responsibility, that's a new counterculture. But mainstream in sick society is to be a victim. And she says that some white men are so desperate to paint themselves as victims that they say they are on the spectrum, that they're autistic. This is what's going on in college now, she says. And so, some of these guys feel so guilty about, that they got to figure out, how am I a victim? How am I a victim? I'm not from this great middle-class family. I'm white. Okay, I'm autistic. I'm on the spectrum. I mean, that's just pathetic. It's just pathetic. This is what society, again, so you can be in that mainstream society, or you can take personal responsibility, just better yourself, get into Bitcoin. Personal responsibility is a new counterculture. So there are real victims in life. Obviously, people who've been abused as children, those are victims. Oh yeah, and we should try to be kind to them. How if they ask for help, try to understand what's going on, help them in a productive manner. But some people come up with these victim schemes and they use it as a weapon, and they weaponized victimhood. And again, I guess some people might originally have been victims, but you can't use your fake victimdom, especially. But if you are really a victim of something's bad happening to you, don't use it as a weapon. Don't try to blackmail people. And there's a guy out there, Quasi Mandius, and I have mentioned this guy before. He's in Vancouver, and I don't know if he might be an American originally. I'm not sure, but he lives in Vancouver on a boat or something. He's got some pretty deep videos. So I linked to that video below. I also linked to his channel below. You check it out. You play. He's a slow talker, so play it at 2x. Definitely play it at 2x. And some of it's kind of deep, but he's trying to do good out there. And he talks about victims. Okay. So what's this? Rasmussen reports. Oh, this is a good one. A recent poll. Ocasio-Cortez versus Trump. And the winner is shock poll. Ocasio-Cortez nearly matches Trump appeal. So no, that's not a shock at all. How's that? Why is that a shock? Why should that be a shock to me? I mean, I'm completely familiar with how democracy in the United States works. I mean, if you're not familiar, if you understand this is not just some big popularity contest. Now, again, she can't run for president, but she's 29 years old. You have to be 35 to run for president. But yeah, of course, more Americans probably like her than Donald Trump at this point. She's the flavor of the month. She's the altcoin flavor of the month. Pound that like button. Yeah, combining two shows there. But this is how the USA works. I mean, so if you're like offended by that like, oh wow, she's more popular than Donald Trump, or that my fellow Americans would rather her be president than Donald Trump, but no, you should opt out of the system. Get in the big. You could just for me, I just watch it as a sideshow. I don't. She's president, he's president. Doesn't make that much of a difference to me because I'm in the Bitcoin overlay, baby. You can't take it to now. Again, if your life is depending on who's president, you got a bad situation. I mean, you got to take personal responsibility so that you're not dependent on your fellow citizen, because look at how your fellow citizen makes decisions and how hot the person is. That's how they make their decisions. So you don't want to get caught in a situation where you're stuck in that world where your fellow citizen decides, okay, she's hot, she's my leader, and she's gonna punish you. You don't want to get into that situation where you can have your wealth taken away, where you can be fired from your job because of new laws that she implements or whoever implements. So no, it's not a shock. It shouldn't be a shock if it's a shock to you that Ocasio-Cortez is as popular as Donald Trump, then you gotta sit back here and get out of this regular paradigm. You got to get into the Bitcoin overlay. You got to opt out of the system and just see no, not everyone's smart. Not everyone makes rational decisions. Most people do not make rational decisions. And then you'll see, no, it's not a shock at all. Of course. Ocasio-Cortez, Trump, they're great. Yeah, sure. So Doug Casey has some thoughts on this woman. And he says, stupid is the inability to not just predict the immediate and direct consequences of actions, but especially the indirect and delayed consequences of your actions. So, there are so many politicians out there that just want to give away stuff, they create more and more giveaways. And of course, that buys them votes in the short term. They don't see what it does in the long term. And what Doug Casey is basically saying here, if you're not a long-term thinker, he doesn't consider you to be very smart. And he's got a point. Impulsive people, they're generally not very intelligent. They're just living for the day. If you're living for the day, you're not going to live very long. How about that? So yeah, delayed gratification, I think Doug Casey is trying to say. And I don't care if AOC is stupid. I don't, but he was giving his opinion there, and he brought up his definition of stupidity, and I just wanted to expand upon it and just tie it into my overall philosophy of delayed gratification. That I think you can you can teach delayed gratification. I hope you can, at least. I hope there are people out there that can learn delayed gratification and not to be impulsive. We shall see. We shall see. At least learn to appreciate it, at least. So I was right before the show, UK Bitcoin Master was in the chat and he said, I can't watch your show live, which is awesome. That's fine. I don't watch it. He said, I'll watch it at 1.5x tomorrow, which is great. Again, 1.5x means 1.5x speed. You can watch this at 2x speed, 1.575 speed on YouTube here on the Bitcoin Meister channel. But anyway, he says he's at a rock club with his lady. And I thought, oh, that's awesome. He's in England, or I know he's actually on vacation, but I imagine him being in England in a rock club because that's where he's from. And then I started thinking about how I think earlier today or earlier this week, I was thinking about Led Zeppelin came out with their first album in 1969. That's 50 years ago now. Led Zeppelin songs are 50 years old. That's unbelievable. I mean, they sound so modern. When you think about something being 50 years old, you don't think about Led Zeppelin. You don't think about hard rock and roll being 50 years old. Time goes by real fast, people. That's really, I guess, the conclusion from that. And I guess if you look at Jimmy Page and Robert Plant and John Paul Jones, they definitely look like they're in the 70s now. They do have long hair, but they've aged from their abuse, drug. It's amazing they're alive. But yes, so Led Zeppelin's first album came out in 1969. Their second album actually came out in 1969 also. As you can tell, I was a Led Zeppelin fan, a big Led Zeppelin fan in college, especially. They're great. Great songs, very original stuff. And I mean, back then, this is one of the greatest rock bands of all time. In a 3-year time span, from 1969 to 71, they came out with 4 awesome albums. I mean, that's just not done anymore. Something the quality they were able to produce from 1969 to 1971. I mean, that was amazing. And I also want to point out that 1969, 1970, and 1971, the Orioles were in the World Series all 3 of those years. They won the World Series in 1970. Pound that like button. They should have won it the other years too, apparently. I mean, I wasn't around. My dad told me everything that happened, of course. But yeah, 1969, the Orioles lost to the Mets, which I'm sure many people have heard about because the miracle Mets. And Andy Hoffman wasn't alive in 1969. He was born the next year. Oh, inside information. No, he says it all the time. But Andy Hoffman's a Mets fan. That's why I bring that up. And no, I will never like the Mets because of 1969, even though I wasn't alive. But Baltimore had a bad sports year in 1969 with the New York teams. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was all around 1969. They lost to the Mets. The Orioles lost to the Mets. And again, don't waste your time on sports. But it's fun to sometimes talk about it. The Orioles lost to the Mets. The Baltimore Colts lost to the New York Jets in the Super Bowl III. And the Baltimore Bullets, before they were the Washington Bullets, before they were the Washington Wizards, the Baltimore Bullets lost to the New York Knicks in the playoffs. And they would always lose to the Knicks, apparently. And my father would tell me stories about he had a friend that would take him down to the Baltimore Civic Center to watch the Baltimore Bullets play. Yeah, the NBA was not like in 1969. The NBA was a lot different. It was almost minor league type of stuff, not like this big show. It wasn't until Larry Bird and Magic Johnson came around that they really it exploded. And the 80s, a lot of things. Sports totally became a tremendous business in the 1980s. I'm sure all of you in America, and I guess in maybe even in the soccer in England have noticed that also. But in the 80s, everything was transformed apparently. But no, my father, he saw the Baltimore Bullets play in the Baltimore Civic Center, which is it's now called, what's it called, Royal Farm Arena now? Pretty ghetto place. But I love the one thing Baltimore's done right. They built an arena like in 1961, and they haven't built a new one since then. So the city, although the taxpayers of Maryland and the city of Baltimore have been fleeced out of so much money for so many things, at least they haven't been fleeced out of money for a new arena. The freaking Civic Center, Baltimore Arena, whatever you want to call it, Royal Farm Arena, whatever you want to call it, it serves its purpose fine. The wrestling comes to town one time a year. I mean, you can have a show there. Yeah, sure, the bathrooms are disgraceful. I mean, I can remember being there like 15 years ago and it being disgraceful. And there's all sorts of interesting stuff going around outside, but hey, okay, there's your sport. Adam talked about sports. Pound that like button for people. That was unplanned. So since I'm in Israel, And I did mention, so I was in the Samaria section of Israel last Thursday. It was last, I'm getting confused. Yeah. It was the 10th. On Thursday the 10th, I was in Samaria, and there were a few things I forgot to mention. So the guy who was driving me around, a Bitcoin fan, a great dude, who gave me a tour of the area. He looks like just a regular guy you'd see anywhere. And then he's strapped, man. He's got his gun on his side. I see Ventions in the chat right now. You'd like this part of the story. He's just got his gun on his side, and it's very casual. You can get a gun permit pretty easily out there. I don't think I mentioned that last time. I wanted to mention that. So, in some parts of some countries, having a gun, very normal. He's an average, regular looking guy. He's got, teenage kids or whatever. There's his gun on his side. It's straight, growing up in an East Coast city, you're not used to seeing things like that. Like a guy that looks like he's from an East Coast city, he's got his gun right there. Okay, so one thing, since you can compare Samaria to suburbia almost, but almost exurbia. So the buses sometimes don't run on time when they get out here and out to Samaria. And I'm in Tel Aviv now. They run on time here apparently. And if you miss your bus, you got to hitchhike. So you see these kids, you see all sorts of people hitchhiking at bus stops. Now, we pull into one bus stop. He's like, hey, yeah, at this bus stop, I had actually emailed him before I went on this tour with him. And I pointed out, hey, it was either a few months ago or a few weeks ago at a bus stop, an Arab guy came out and started shooting people. But he got shot before he killed anyone, I think. I'm butchering the story. But he's like, hey, Adam, we pull into this bus stop. He's like, this is where that story took place that you emailed me. I'm like, okay. And then there's a girl standing there, and she just gets into the car. So and I was like looking at him. He's like, yeah, we pick up a hitchhiker. And he asked her in Hebrew where she wants to go. So, it was on the way. So we just had this girl in the back of our car. And she just gets on the phone and just starts talking. Well, we're just talking English in the front. It's just like totally nonchalant. You just get into some random dude's car, and then he drops you off. And it was very certain. I am not used to hitchhiking at all. I grew up in a situation in the United States. My parents would tell me, you never hitchhike. You'll be kidnapped. You'll be killed. You'll be this, you'll be that. And of course, in the United States, the likelihood is, of course, yeah. If you're a girl and you're hitchhiking, some guy picks you up, it's not going to end too well for you. And that's the reality of the United States. At least around the big cities. I'm not recommending anyone hitchhike, but in Israel, hitchhiking is a totally normal thing. So then we're driving around some more, and there's like a religious guy on the side of the street. We pull up, he jumps in the car, and we start talking in English. He totally ignores us. He does his own thing in the back. What's going on? It's a very interesting culture. And so again, so you can either hitchhike or you just wait for the bus. It's not recommended to walk on the side of the road. That was implied to me because you see these Arab dudes walking on the side of the road, and there can be conflict. So you're best not and I heard stories that if your car breaks down, that's not very good. You better call. You better get out of there quick if your car breaks down, because there's some angry people out there. There are definitely some angry people out there. Whatever. If you're safe, you're safe. The hitchhiking is apparently quite safe in Samaria. So it was a wild scene to see that, and I thought I would mention that. So speaking about the Samaria, out there I saw a political sign for the Zehut party, and I linked to these Zehut dudes below. And I've heard of these guys before because they want to pay the Arabs to leave Samaria. They just want to, they want to compensate them instead of having all these problems, all these things we hear about. Just okay, you guys are angry. We'll buy your land from you. We'll compensate you fairly, and we'll give you a lot of money so you can start a whole new life at a high standard of living in some other country somewhere, and everyone will be happy. It'll be a fair trade. So that's part of this Zehut platform. But they're like a libertarian type of party. They're in a smaller government, and there's like a religious bent to it also. But I saw a sign for them when I was in Samaria, so I thought I would mention that today. They've got a housing plan. The state of Israel owns like 90%. The country. I don't know what I know in the United States, in Nevada, like the federal government owns like 99% of the land. Well, in Israel, the federal government owns like 90% of the land. So one of their Moshe Feiglin is their main guy. He wants to privatize the land, which I think is a great idea. You know, I don't think any country should be owning huge hunks of land. They should try to let the people buy the land, so the country doesn't have to maintain it and have the liability, and people can create what they want to do on their land, and it raises money for the state also. And there's a lot of housing purchase taxes in Israel. Housing is very expensive because, again, there's certain rules the government implies. It says you can't build a house there, and that limits supply, and there's a high demand. People have a lot of kids, and then they tax the houses very high. So he's proposing getting rid of some of the high housing taxes. And I'm not familiar with these taxes. Again, I don't buy houses in any country anymore. Renting, baby. Save that money. All right. But some people want to buy houses. So there we go. So there's a Hoot Party. I linked to them below. And the other thing, I know from a little bit of research, some of those dudes know about Bitcoin. Some of those guys know about Bitcoin over there. I don't know if they accept Bitcoin donations, but they do know about Bitcoin. So that's the one political party that I've heard about that. And there's all sorts of political parties in Israel. And the way their elections work, you have to vote for the party. And again, the leader of the party is Moshe Feiglin. But you don't hear a lot about them, obviously, because they're a small party and they're probably only known in Israel. But hey, there's some information about them. And you don't hear unique solutions to the issues that they have in Israel with the Arabs and such. You never hear a financial solution. It's just like we compensate them, pay them. And in the long run, it costs to give somebody a lump sum payment now, than letting them stick around and all sorts of trouble being caused, all sorts of welfare being given out. It's well worth it. If you're a long-term thinker, to nip the problem in the bud now with a big financial layout now instead of a long, drawn-out, never-ending financial. It costs a lot of money. The problems in Israel, the security issues, it costs a lot of money to maintain this type of stuff. And the people are taxed very high here to pay for that. And then again, there's certain aspects of the population that don't work at all. So yeah, they have a welfare state here. And again, don't let anyone tell you. I mean, when you're driving around Samaria and you see the Arab villages and stuff, their quality of life is quite high compared to other Arab countries or Muslim countries in Africa and such. See it for yourself. Again, you got to see it for yourself. It's quite amazing to see. I've seen it for myself. So again, a lot of people love to comment on the Arab issues in Israel without ever seeing how an Arab lives in Israel or seeing Israel or seeing Samaria. But I have seen it. My eyes have seen the glory of the I didn't see that. There's some song about that. All right. I'm talking about checking out This Week in Bitcoin. Okay, Adam's personal life. Everybody, I rarely talk about, what's certain aspects, but when something big happens, I got to talk about it. So everybody knows my grandmother turned like 96 at the end of December. And then around New Year's, she got sick. She did get very sick. She had got a blockage in her intestines, some sort of blockage, where she was just vomiting everything up. Everything was coming up. Black bile, red bile, green bile. And so this is obviously a very difficult situation. You can imagine for my mother, this is my mother's mother, all of a sudden is very sick. My mother has obviously just lost her husband on November the 20th. So, a month and a half later, her mother has become incredibly ill. Where my grandmother could not eat. And so she went to the hospital, and the situation was not improving at all. She could not, they were only giving her ice cubes. They stuck a tube down her throat to suck up everything from her so she wouldn't vomit black bile and green bile and red bile. And so, she's sitting there and this is, my grandmother got to the hospital, I think so it was probably Saturday the 5th. It was on Saturday the 5th when I was doing this show. And then when I was in Samaria on the 10th, so they put some barium solution in her to see if the barium would go through. That means the blockage finally would have moved. And they didn't know what was causing the blockage. It's a 96-year-old woman. They're not used to such things. Usually when a 96-year-old woman has something like this, She doesn't have people who care about her, and she just dies, or they don't take care of her at the hospital and she just dies at the hospital. But my mother was with my grandmother every second of the time, every second. And so the barium solution was put into my grandmother. And for someone like you or me, the barium would go right through us like in 2 hours or something. Well, it was like 4 days, and it wasn't going through her, and she couldn't eat, she couldn't drink. And they're like, we're gonna have to have an operation. We have to move. But my grandmother's had intestinal problems a long time ago, and so it could have been scar tissue, it could have been anything, but they couldn't figure out what was going on. But you can't just have a blockage. You can't just live like that. And she was becoming very weak, very weak. But she said, I want to operate. So all these, part of the reason I'm bringing this up is because the people that come into there that, talk to my mother and my grandmother about what the next step is, they're like, well, you can go to hospice, so you can go back to your house and you can die there. I mean, these are the options they're laying out. And it's not even like a legitimate option to have the operation. She doesn't want to die. She's of complete sound mind, laying there, barfing up bile, but she doesn't want to die. She doesn't want to die. And I heard it. I mean, I was in on some of these calls and stuff. I heard different things. And you can hear her voice. She's got tubes down her throat. And she's like, I want the operation. It's like, it's sad stuff. But saying, I want the operation. I want that. She doesn't want it. When they said the word hospice, she says, no hospice. She couldn't even talk. I mean, it was horrifying. So, okay, they're preparing for the operation. It's an incredibly risky operation. You can imagine. The likelihood of survival is not high. But I mean, what other option is there? That you're going to die? She didn't want to go. No, either way, you're going to die. I mean, at least you got a chance with the operation. At least you got a chance. So luckily, and I had a sibling there with my mother and my grandmother. Luckily, they kept on doing to see if the barium would move. The barium wasn't moving. The barium wasn't going through her. And so I talked to my grandmother when I was in Samaria on that Thursday, and she sounded fine to me. She sounded good. She was ready for the operation, which would be in a few hours. And, and she, was a little sad and everything to talk to her, but she sounded confident. Well, shortly afterwards, she could no longer take it. She couldn't take it. She couldn't take the tubes in her throat anymore. And all this talk and all this, she felt like she had no control, and she started to become incredibly weak, like nothing like we had seen before. And my sibling that was there with her said it was unbelievable what was happening. My grandmother started to die right before my sibling's eyes, and it was like my sibling who was there, it was like looking at the machines, was like, oh my God, what's going on here? But you're used to on the soap operas, it goes like beep when the person flatlines. And my grandmother started speaking differently. She started talking about God and all this stuff she doesn't usually talk about, and it was. My sibling was about to say, like, wait a second here, she's becoming so weak. We got to stop this. We can't let the operation. My sibling was about to say, there's no point to doing the operation if she's going to die on the way. She didn't want my grandmother to die alone on the way to the operation. Just to let her die right there would be much better. But then all of a sudden, out of the blue, this doctor comes barging into the room and says, the barium moved. And then everyone's going crazy and celebrating, and everyone's so happy. And then my grandmother all of a sudden is waking up. Is like, what? And so unbelievably enough, the solution moved in her. So the blockage unblocked at the very last moment that they had tested it out. And again, what my grandmother said was, God, why would you do this to my mother? Why would you take me and take her husband so close together like this? But luckily, even though my grandmother thought she was about to die right there, I mean, I give my grandmother a lot of credit to say, like, to be worrying about my mother at the last second of her life, to be saying, like, why would my mother have to suffer because my grandmother's about to die? I mean, that's pretty unbelievable right there. But luckily for everybody, luckily for everyone, this miraculous thing happened. It moved, and the operation was canceled. Obviously, my grandmother's spirits all perked up. She woke up, but she was going in and out of consciousness. All this weird stuff started happening, and then they take the tube out of her, and they give her some ice, and she can have liquid again. And so it was So that was last Thursday. So then a week later, yesterday, a week and a day later, which was yesterday, my grandmother got out of the hospital. My grandmother's back home. So she didn't have to do any hospice, which is death. She didn't have the operation. So, I mean, the point of this story is, you take care. My mother was looking after that woman every darn second in that hospital. Those places are death traps, okay? They are death traps. You can die so many different ways there. They can make so many different mistakes, especially when you're old like that. I mean, and they weren't giving her a chance. They didn't want to do the operation. But I mean, they can be as careless as they want to be because they can just say, well, she's 96 years old. Of course she died during the operation. So she's fine. She's of sound mind still. I talked to her on the phone yesterday, like I do every Friday, and she's back at her house again. And so she's starting to eat regular foods and everything. So that was a big scare. And that would have been very devastating to my mother. I mean, I can't imagine. But my grandmother's quite a fighter there, quite a fighter. But there comes a point when obviously you start to just there is a point when you cannot. There's a point. It's torturous. It must be torturous not to be able to drink and to have tubes down your throat and have all these people saying all these different things. And, well, that's been going on. So I had that on my mind for the last 2 weeks or so. That's been on my mind, but I didn't want to talk about it because it didn't look good. It obviously looked very risky. And they were saying, if you have this operation, if you survive the operation, you won't be the same afterwards. The recovery will be very, very hard. But no, she wanted to have the operation. She wanted to live. So, I mean, there's a lot of people out there. Everybody like makes it, this assisted suicide stuff is so great, and hospice and just giving up is and no, people want to live. They're people that want to live. They definitely want to live and give it the fighting shot. And she wanted to give it a shot. And it was just at the very last second, she just started to die. She was about to die on that bed right there and then. I mean, the things that were going on, she was saying and stuff, but luckily the good news came at the very last freaking second. Thank God. Thank God. So I am happy. I am happy my grandmother is home, and I'm happy that the Meister family doesn't have to go through, another tragic event. So she's fighting it. She's 96 years old, and let's keep on going. Let's keep on going. Strong hand, baby. Strong hand. Long-term thinking for grandma. Okay, pound that like button. So there's your Adam Meister personal story. I know some people like to hear things like that. Well, on the opposite side of the spectrum, we're talking about end of people, forcing saying when your end of life is about to happen. I mean, all of it. This is the end of your life, grandma. That's what they were trying to say to her. Okay. Well, no one was. They weren't relatives trying to say. It was just the doctors and the nurses were trying to say, just give up. You can go home. You'll die on Monday. Ha ha. Very fun stuff. No, but on the other side of the spectrum, we got Ben Shapiro talking at the what is this? The March for Life thing. And he's obviously against abortion. And wait, before we go, I gotta go back to my grandmother for 1 second. We'll talk about abortion in a second. I mentioned to you on a previous show, I said how we live in this technological time of technological marvels, and how my grandmother has no thyroid and she has thyroid medicine. And without that thyroid medicine, she would die in a day without, I was wrong about that, actually. You can actually live without your thyroid medicine for a few days, apparently, because they didn't give her a thyroid medicine. And eventually you don't have the synthetic thyroid. You die some torturous death or something like that. I mean, it takes you just don't die the next day. I was wrong about that when I said, right? Because the thing is, people can have their thyroids taken out. My grandmother doesn't have a thyroid, and they can live off of medication. That's an amazing technological marvel. But I originally thought if you didn't have it in a day, you would die. No. You can even look it up online. Some people have survived for a week or something, but eventually you start to rot away or some horrible way to die. But when my grandmother was in the hospital, they weren't giving her thyroid medicine, apparently, too. I'm not going to get into it. And I even told my sibling to tell my mother to say, make sure make sure they're injecting the thyroid into her if she can't swallow it. But that was the least of her problems, I guess. But eventually, if they weren't giving her the medicine, she would have just, but she probably would have died before that anyway. I don't know. It's so, was really cutting it close there, I'm going to tell you. So going back to Ben Shapiro at the abortion rally, anti-abortion rally, March for Life, he spoke there, and apparently some people are angry at him because he spoke there and he said something. This is the funny thing. We live in this world where, like, to fit in now, you cannot be on the other side of abortion. If you want to be with the cool kids, you can't just say like killing babies is bad. You can't say it's killing babies. You can't say that. But that's a legitimate opinion. I mean, it's a pretty darn legitimate. I mean, what they cut it, that's what it is. It's a person. It's a life. It's ending a life. Just like I was talking about ending an old person's life, which I am totally against. If the old person wants to live, I mean, ending a baby's life, ending a pre-baby, whatever you want to call it. So people mock him for this, that he's against abortion. And it's just, again, people, you got to get, eventually I think abortion people who are against abortion will be supported with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency donations. I don't know, but it's just like taboo. It's taboo to say the other end of the argument. Like the pro-abortion people, they can say anything they want to. They can dance around naked. They can do this. They can do that. They can do that. But if you're gonna say abortion is killing a baby, abortion is, you can't say that. I mean, just like, you're shunned. How could you say that? You're not going to get any advertisers anymore. I mean, what is this world? I'm saying it. I'm saying it right now because I don't care about fitting in. I mean, again, you could lose your job if you say abortion is killing. It's killing. Yes, it's killing. Well, how is that not a legitimate opinion? A legitimate that it is what it is. It's ending a life. So I mean, it's the whole personal responsibility is a new counterculture thing. There are these people who you got pregnant, okay? That was now again, if it's from rape or incest, that's a different thing, okay? But most of the time you engaged in activities where you were impregnated, you got to take responsibility. And if you aborted the baby and someone says you killed a baby, then you got to take you did what you did, dude. Or do that, or whoever. You did what you did. You deal with the consequences. Deal with the consequences. You got pregnant. You aborted it. You killed it. And someone says you killed a baby. I have met people. I'm not going to get into detail here. But in my past, who were they would hear an anti-abortion person talk on the TV, and they would go crazy. Epileptic, I mean, just crazy, like that horrible, they call them all sorts of names. And it's because of guilt. It was because of guilt of this person had an abortion. And it was just this guilt, this unbelievable guilt. They have to attack. Because I mean, deep down, they know they've killed something. They've ended something. And it was they created that something. And they took the steps. And so within everyone, everyone knows there should be personal responsibility. So when they know they're going away from that, they get very defensive. So no, it's personal. It's, you created this. If you're carrying the baby now, you got a decision to make. Let it live. I mean, that seems pretty normal to me. But if you decide to kill it, and then someone says you killed it, or you hear people talking about not killing babies, you're gonna have to deal. You're gonna have to deal, man. This is something you're gonna have to think about. But no, it is totally a legitimate opinion, side of the argument that, yeah, you've killed a baby. I mean, look at the pictures. What's it look like to you? What's it look like to you? But we live in a very interesting world today. So again, I encourage people to not get into situations where you can be fired for stating an obvious fact. Bitcoin overlay. All right, so moving on. Oh, we've talked about all sorts of things today. MGTOW Money. He's got a good channel. I mentioned him before. And yeah, you don't need to fit in. It's not, fitting in is overrated. Fitting in. I mean, if to fit in, you have to say, yeah, it's not killing. That's a slippery slope. Then no, that's not really killing. Then he's like shooting me in the head, not really killing because I said something you didn't like. That's not really killing, So MGTOW Money, straight up, he's got a video that it's just a straight up warning about these investment newsletters, talking about how in the past he used to pay for investment newsletters and they never worked, and not to put these gurus on pedestals. And he even says that, there's crypto people that are doing it now too. He doesn't like cryptocurrency. He doesn't like Bitcoin at all, really, from what I can tell. But he's warning everyone, whatever type of financial newsletter it is. Make your own decisions. You don't have to pay someone, because usually their claims are wrong. They talk about the few times they're right. They never talk about when they were wrong. And then you end up paying them money. And it's quite a lucrative business for them. Not so lucrative for you. Carl Denninger at the market ticker. He has a post about the ketogenic diet. He's always been into this high-fat diet. And again, I actually linked it, all of the articles he's ever done. Now, I don't agree with Carl on the Bitcoin stuff at all. And he's a smart guy. Sometimes he's too smart for his own good. I'll say that. But he's interesting. He's lost a lot of weight on the keto, and he's a big supporter of it. And he's got some pretty cold, hard facts on it over there. New York Times had an article that I meant to mention a few times now, but I keep forgetting, about some colleges that are going to let students go there for free, but pay them with their future salaries. So that kind of, again, education is free. You can get a good education on the internet. I would not get into a situation where I get myself in debt, or I wouldn't get myself in a situation where I've signed up to give my future income away either. But it's actually a good deal for the colleges, because they're gonna try to get if a student says, hey, I'm down with giving you some of my future salary, they're gonna pick some kids that are smart, that they know are going to get future salary. So it's a good deal for the colleges. You can look at the story yourself. I wouldn't advise someone doing that. If you're that desperate to go to college that you're willing to give out your future salary, I don't know, man. Maybe you find another way around it. You shouldn't give up your future salary for. There's free sources of that education now, and college is not all that it's cracked out to be, as I've said many, many times here. Baltimore Sun article that I meant to share last week too. Baltimore water rates will increase 30% in the next 3 years. That's your water bill, people. The water rates already double what they were 9 years ago, will increase more than 9% each year for the next 3 years to pay costly but necessary improvements to the city's aging water and sewer system. Public Works Director Rudy Chow said. It's amazing. This Rudy Chow guy's he's been over at the Public Works in Baltimore City with the water bill stuff for so long, and it's been such a disaster for so long. This is another, everyone says, buying a house is so great. Well, this is one of those expenses, is a water bill in Baltimore City that will increase 30% in the next 3 years, even though it's already doubled what it was 9 years ago. It just keeps going. It's a hidden tax. They should call it the water tax, for God's sakes. And I mentioned this before, but the information keeps coming out there over and over, and people they choose to ignore it. The benefits of owning a home, the benefits of owning a home. Oh yeah, it's great stuff. Yeah, great. Paying, and again, they can get away with these. There's all sorts of expenses in the water department. They don't have to run it efficiently at all, because people just hand them over money. They're stuck. When you're living in a house, you get stuck there. You got to pay the water bill, or you lose the house. Finally, we got Dr. Avi Loeb. Dr. Avi Loeb is also from Israel originally. He's a Harvard scientist now. And he actually, I bet he's probably on a different political side of the spectrum than many of you. He grew up in like a kibbutz so his parents could have been communists for all I know. But let's not put politics into this. There's a lot of different type of Israeli people out there. This guy is smart. And because we were talking about at the beginning, the narcissist guy. I don't think that guy's a liberal, but Avi Loeb probably is. He is at Harvard, and he has been investigating this Oumuamua asteroid or meteor that was an asteroid that was near Earth, and they figured out was from another solar system. Okay, it was not from here, and it's their first interstellar object that's been identified. Now, they're not 100% sure, but so he's come up with theories where this could have been some form of advanced technology from a faraway, alien civilization. Now, again, we have no proof there are any alien civilizations out there. There are all these people, and it's alien civilizations have been given a bad name, because there are all these people say, they've landed on Earth, they've done this, and people have been saying it since the 1920s, 1960s. All these aliens have landed on Earth, and our technology has improved so much over those years. And none of that stuff has been anywhere close to being confirmed. It's probably people seeking attention, narcissistic personality. So people conflate, alien sightings on Earth with the possibility that in this tremendous universe that we live in, the size cannot even be described by someone like me, okay? That there could be another civilization. There could be, you see, the thing is that Avi Loeb points out is that a civilization that can send probes into space already exists. We are that civilization. So that already exists in the universe. We know that exists. So why wouldn't that exist somewhere else in the universe? Why would that be so shocking? Why would that be, not something to look into when it comes to the Oumuamua? That's what I'm pointing out. When you have something like Oumuamua that is from another solar system, okay, that's not from here, why not try, when you're trying to figure out what it is and it's got an odd shape, why can't it being from another civilization be a possibility? And he goes on to say that dark matter is something that is accepted by the scientific community, but we have no example of dark matter. We have no example of dark matter. It's all theoretical. The multiverse, that there are multiple universes. We have no, that's a respectable theory that is among academics, okay? It's not laughed at. Those things are not laughed at all. There are many complicated mathematical formulas that are around multiverses and dark matter, but we cannot even test. We can't even test for a multiverse. You can test if something like Oumuamua comes by again, and we get a picture of it, it can be tested to, you can figure out if this is from another civilization somewhere in this gigantic universe of ours. So I do link to an Avi Loeb video. He's all over the place now. So if you're interested in that, in civilizations from other galaxies, other solar systems, he's a guy, he's a totally smart, legitimate Harvard professor. And I think more people have to take that side of the investigation into objects in the universe as take it more seriously. Because again, we know that a civilization exists that has sent probes into space. We are that civilization. So why couldn't it help? All right. Oh yeah. And one other thing I wanted to message. Phew, God, I've been talking a while. So yeah, I linked to him. I linked to some of his videos below. Something, if you're going to do a longer fast. Well, first of all, if you're used to doing intermittent fasting like I do, and you eat once a day, I eat every 22 hours at least. I wait 22 hours between meals. And Benjamin Mikal just sent a super chat. I better see what that was. But I wait 22 hours between meals. And so I'm usually, when I'm in a location, I've been here for a while. When I'm in Baltimore, I'm in the same place. I get used to, I eat at the same place. It's the same triggers. So when I'm about to, listen to Ben Shapiro or whatever, and I'm cooking up my food, these things trigger my hunger a little bit. And so I'm ready to eat. So if you want to do a longer fast, you get yourself away from your food triggers. If you're already on a set schedule like I am, and maybe you only eat every 18 hours or every 20 hours, every 16 hours. It's so much easier to extend it to 41 hours or 48 hours, whatever, to skip a day if you're in a situation where you're not where you usually eat, where those stimuli are gone, okay? So if you're like in an airport, so when I'm in an airport, I have no desire to eat at all. I have none. Because I'm not around my lap. I'm not around the things that usually I'm around when I'm about to eat. So I'm just trying to make this easier for people who want to move to the next level of longer fast. Do it when you're not at your house, where you usually eat at, where you see this. It's so easy. It's, at least for me, it's so easy. Like when I was in Samaria, I'm being driven around, and I'm not hungry at all, because I'm not thinking about food at all. So and again, the other thing you have to do is you prepare. You just don't do a random, you just don't decide the day of the fast, I'm going to do a 41-hour fast. You think about it a week in advance. You're like, that's the day I'm doing it. That's the day I'm doing it. So you get it set, you get that goal up there, and then you make it even easier by not being in your usual situation on that day. There you go. There's your longer fast tip of the day if you want to skip a day of eating. which is I call like a 41-hour fast. Oh, yeah. Vention MGTOW says, getting pretty whoa, Adam. Laugh out loud. Well, thank you, Vention. Thank you for the $5, baby. I always appreciate the support. And thank you for the support on Bitbacker also. Okay, everybody. Are you going to remove your ETC address? Somebody says. No, I never really I'll update. There's so much stuff I have to update below my video. I just never update it. And if someone wants to give me Ethereum Classic, be my guest. Be my guest. I'll take it. I'll turn into Bitcoin. But what's the point? What's the point? All right, everyone. And again, remember, I'm definitely saying there are no aliens on the planet Earth. I'm definitely saying that. But I'm just saying, think about the odds here that there is life. There is most likely life out there somewhere. How intelligent it is, I don't know. We should be sending probes all over the place to the moons of Jupiter, to Saturn's, I can't even pronounce that one moon. It starts with an E. But yeah, we should be sending probes all over, digging into ice, looking for life everywhere, because it's just the odds are there's life somewhere. The intelligent life, we should be doing the SETI search. That's a little harder to do, but no, we should search. It's a tremendous universe. It's so tremendous, so much to learn out there. And I'm a curious guy, and just developing technologies that make searching for extraterrestrial life, developing those technologies will improve life here. The more technologies we develop, the easier life becomes here. Where you're developing a technology for one thing, but it ends up helping for another aspect of life too. So I encourage everyone to be curious and to check out that Avi Loeb stuff and all this space. Last week I linked to some other space related videos, and these are all scientifically based stuff. This is none of that what's it called, the clickbait. There's so many clickbait videos that have to do with aliens, and they're not based on science at all. I'm talking about a Harvard freaking professor, okay, and some other very smart people. So I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video, check out the links section below, pound that like button, bang that bell button. And yeah, I'll say hi to you guys in the chat right now. See you.